episode 1064 of Flow Wrestling Radio Live. I'm your host, Christian Piles. I am not in Austin, Texas. That is abundantly clear if you're watching anywhere. I'm in Pennsylvania, getting ready for Who's Number One. We got a great show in store for you. We got JD Raider. We got Tyler Meisinger. David Bray, he's here to talk some Who's Number One. And, of course, today we're going to be talking. This is a WNO preview show. We're going to get into the latest on the All-Star Classic, 165-pound tiers. Going to talk a little Nebraska wrestling. But first, want to start giving heartfelt condolences to the friends and family of Alan Vera. Alan passed away Monday night. He suffered cardiac arrest later in the summer, like a month or so ago, and then passed away on Monday. Very, very sad news. Leaves behind a wife, Elena Piriskova Vera, who was an amazing wrestler, a world champion wrestler for Team USA, and a two-time Olympian, and a daughter, Elena. So sad, so shocking to see someone who is so accomplished and fit as Alan Vera pass away. We are going to drop the link to the GoFundMe in the chat, and also JD is going to make sure the GoFundMe is in the show notes to help support Alan, Alan's family through this very, very difficult time. So super sad way to start the show. Definitely a shocker to learn that. But yeah, wanted to make sure we began with that because that's sad news and big news in wrestling. So starting with that, not an easy transition out of that. I don't know if you guys had anything to add, or we can get started with a regularly scheduled program, JD.
Yeah, let's get to the regular scheduled program. On that scheduling program note, no show on Monday. Some of us will be traveling back from Who's Number One or Nebraska, like myself. So Tuesday at your regularly scheduled time of 10 a.m. Central. Just get that out of the way.
Good to know. Good to know. Of course, Who's Number One's going to be going down Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern for the women's card and 5 p.m. Eastern for the men's card. While we're talking schedules.
I love schedules.
So
no, you don't. You're the one. No one. You don't adhere to any of them.
Well, I still like the concept of it.
As a concept, okay, that's good.
Conceptually, I agree with it.
As we were saying, we are now just 3 days away from Who's Number One. Bray, kind of give us a little update on Who's Number One and some of the premier matchups that everybody is talking about. And I also want to hear maybe a match or two that is under the radar you expect to be really good.
Well, first, there is an actual update to the Who's Number One card because we had an injury, unfortunately. 190 pounds. We had a match set up between Harvey Ludington, Cade Ziola. Ludington's hurt. I hope he heals up quick. He's a beast. So he'll be back soon. I think he'll be good to go. But he was injured last weekend, so he's out of the event. And so we were trying to figure out, what's a good match to make because Cade Ziola, he's already on the way. He's got his travel booked. He's ready to rock. And we were able to get an opponent on short notice. Ziola's ranked second at 190, but he wants to be a heavyweight in college, so he's going to be moving up eventually. And so we got Angelo Posada, the Fargo champ, at 215 this year, and they're going to wrestle a match at 200 pounds. So it's going to be a lot of fun. California State champ, Angelo Posada, and Cade Ziola. So anyway, that is like the actual update to the event. But in terms of matches that maybe people aren't talking about, I don't think people are talking about as many matches as they should be because we got such a prominent headliner. You got Bo Bassett, you got Daniel Zepeda. We've talked about that at length. I think 175 though, that's, the co-main, that's the second to last event or match of the night. I think that is a match that people really need to be thinking about because D Lockett, he's moving up. He's a 165 pounder, but he's going to wrestle 175 against Ryan Burton. And Burton is a guy who is probably this time a year ago, not really on people's radar. And then he shows up to Super 32, wins that, and really ran, through the tough season. He won a really tough New Jersey State bracket and won Fargo. The guy's super good. So not only is D Lockett moving up in weight, but he's got a serious challenger there at 175.
Yeah, it's going to be a great match that I think you're right. Not a lot of people are talking about. I want to go back to Cade Ziola.
Yeah.
why I like him. He's from Nebraska,
Yes.
but also his name sounds like the new Nebraska quarterback, whose name is Raiola,
Okay.
with an R, who is supposed to be like the savior of Nebraska. And he plays all like Patrick Mahomes, and his younger brother just committed to Nebraska, and he looks all like Jackson Mahomes.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it doesn't get much
Great
better than
connection.
that. Yeah.
If you didn't want to watch Who's Number One already, now you have all the reason in the world. You're going to be able to watch a guy whose name sounds like the Nebraska quarterback, who has a brother that looks like other people's brothers.
I'm telling you, you got to look it up. These two, they're the Mahomes brothers.
Okay.
Of Nebraska.
So Cade Ziola is the sounds like the Mahomes brothers of.
Wow.
He could be the Patrick Mahomes. What Patrick Mahomes is to the Kansas City Chiefs, he could be to Nebraska.
Okay.
I have a funny story about Ryan Burton.
I would love to hear it.
I was walking around at Fargo, and this kid was like, "Hey, do you know who I am?" And I was like, and like one of his teammates just whispers, "Ryan Burton." I was like, "Ryan Burton," and he's like, "Whoa, you know who I am?" And I was like, in my head, I'm like, "Man, you have to be a really good high schooler to be on my radar. I don't just." No, I'm not in the rankings for high school and stuff. And then as the tournament went on, he like just dominated through Fargo, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't know who this guy was when he asked me. Like I genuinely should have. Like he's so good.
Yeah. No, he's legit, and he's one of those guys that I think by the time he gets to college, by the time he gets to Virginia Tech, there's not going to be anybody who doesn't know who this guy is. And so, yeah, this would be a really, really fun one. I don't know. It's going to be awesome. Like, he's really big. He's a good hand fighter. He has good attacks. I think Lockett is an underrated hand fighter, though. I think people watch D. Lockett and they think about, you know, some of his like most explosive moments or some crazy scrambles he's been in, but he is a vicious hand fighter, and that's something that he's had to improve over the last year. So I just think it's going to be a great style matchup, and one that we could be talking about next week when we're breaking it all down.
Tyler, you made that reel for social media yesterday talking about Bassett and Zepeda, the rematch, and you claimed it's the most anticipated match in Who's Number One history. Maybe CP, you can speak for this. Is this the most anticipated match in Who's Number One history? Where does this stack up?
Oh, you're asking me. Okay. I think so. I mean, well, one, Bo Bassett, I mean, I think you could fairly say he's the most popular high school wrestler of all time. If not, he certainly will be. I'll say that he currently is that. And he's trying to avenge a loss that he suffered at this very event to a guy, Daniel Zepeda, who is an absolute stud, a Fargo champion, coached by Daniel Cormier, maybe the most famous wrestler of all time. So I think without a doubt, those are just the outside things, like that pulls in maybe a more casual fan. Then you get the wrestling behind it, which is not going to be some, these guys aren't going to stare at each other and pick one spot for one takedown like we've seen in other Who's Number One matches that were maybe hyped. This is going to have a lot of scoring, a lot of points. We know that because we've watched them wrestle forever. We know that because they wrestled a year ago and it was incredible. And all those factors are the perfect recipe for the biggest match in Who's Number One history. And I think it's something as we look back. Now, who knows? Bo Bassett's going to have other opportunities to wrestle in this event. But for right now, I would say it is the biggest match of all time.
Well, he's not going to get a chance to avenge a loss again at Who's Number One.
No.
That's for certain.
Unless Daniel Zepeda repeats his senior year and beats him here, which I don't think is likely to happen. I want to ask David, what's your read on the Melvin Miller-Landon Robideau match? Who's the favorite there?
Who's the favorite is a really tough question to answer because, looking at the guy that seems like, physically a little bit further along and who's been on the scene for a lot longer, that's Robideau. I mean, this guy, if you would have asked this question a year ago, Robideau would have been a massive favorite, like not even close. But looking at Melvin Miller and what he's pulled off during his freshman year, remember, this guy just a sophomore. He's got 1 year of high school under his belt. That's it. What he's pulled off in a year, it's hard to like say enough about how good this guy has looked. The titles are one thing. He won Super 32. He won, a PIAA state title. He won the U.S. Open, U17 World Team Trials. He won Fargo. That's a lot of winning, but the way he does it is crazy. He's, in Super 32, I think it was the semis, he was trailing kind of by a lot late, and he had to go get a couple takedowns. He did that. PIAAs, he was trailing from the quarterfinals on in every single match. He came from behind, got it done every time, and then
in the quarter he was losing 5-0.
Yeah,
like the second period or something.
Yeah, and then everybody's seen his Fargo final. We did a follow along. Connor did a follow along with him. If you haven't watched it, you got to check it out because it's incredible. He comes from behind. He needs 2 takedowns with something like 16 seconds left, and the last takedown there was a whistle restart, like 4 seconds on the clock, and he went out, got the takedown. So partly when you're evaluating this matchup, it's like being that clutch, it doesn't feel like something that you should be able to count on and that you can replicate, and that like you don't want to be losing in that many matches and just like expect that you can pull it off. And you even saw like at U17 Worlds, he wasn't able to come back in a couple of matches. He was 5th in the world, wasn't able to come back, and so I don't know. I think probably on paper, Robideau like slight favorite, but this is as close to a 50-50 coin toss matchup as I think you can get. And it's exciting too because these guys have both been in brackets one weight apart in big spots. In Super 32, they were both in the finals. Robideau was 38. Melvin was I think 44. I can't remember, he was 44 or 50. And then in Fargo, they were a weight class apart too. So should be really awesome.
Gotcha.
But favorite, I don't know. It's pretty close.
I have an opinion.
What is it?
My opinion is that I hear people say Melvin Miller loses. I've never seen it. I was at Super 32, watched him win. I was at Pennsylvania State, watched him win. I was at Fargo, watched him win. People can say that he loses all they want. I've never seen it with my own eyes. So for that reason, I have to go Melvin Miller.
Yeah.
This is why, this is kind of like the adult version of peekaboo for Tyler. Like once the adult is behind the blanket, the adult doesn't exist to Tyler. And in the same way, Melvin Miller has literally never lost.
Never lost.
Mind. Hey, while I got you there, Tyler, talk to me if this is Hockey and Jude Correa, 2 future Michigan men. Mm-hmm. How do you navigate the potential bad blood here? Because there's no different weight classes. There's just heavyweight. So is there going to be a little heat there?
I think that no matter what, everything will work out perfectly, and they will both be happy in the end. That's my opinion.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow. That was beautiful. Okay.
Bray.
We talked about who's number 1, I guess.
Nothing yet. Bray, give us one guy who, for the casual fan who doesn't watch a whole lot of high school wrestling, isn't on their radar, but you think is going to have a really good performance, win or lose, who could potentially, maybe a younger guy who could potentially go on to, be a star in the sport.
Jaden James. You got to start watching Jaden James. I think a lot of people, when they're watching the Fargo finals, especially now that the finals are happening on 2 mats, you can either watch, you can watch both, but if you have to choose and you're going to either watch the junior or the 16 and under division, you're usually going junior. Jaden James, he's a 2-time Fargo champ, but at the 16U. So maybe everybody hasn't seen this guy yet, but he is super good. I really thought we were going to see him and Melvin Miller in the U17 World Team Trials finals, but he got beat, didn't make it there. And so he just hasn't been in that big stage yet. He's coming. This guy is coming. He's already committed to Virginia Tech. He's one of the first big recruits in the class of 2026 to commit. He's going to Virginia Tech he's one of 5 people in this event that are going there. But yeah, this guy's he's gonna be really fun, and I think he's gonna keep growing. He was 138 during the high school season, now up to 150. I think he's probably like a 174, maybe 184 in college. So we're going to see him now against a future teammate, but it's going to probably be the only time we're going to see him against Colin Guy. He's going to move up. He's going to get big. I don't know if he's going to beat Colin Guy yet, but I think he's going to put on a really good performance. He wrestles with a lot of pace and does some training with PJ Duke, so that kind of gives you a little bit of a sense. But yeah, keep an eye on Jaden James.
Good stuff. I want to shout out a couple of the women's matches that I'm excited about. Match number 1. This one's, I think, match 4 or that range. It's a little bit early in the lineup. Jacqueline Bouzakis versus Haley Delgado. Obviously, you probably know the Buzakis name. That is the younger sister of Nick Buzakis and Vince Buzakis. And she is taking on a Texan, Haley Delgado, who's moving up to 100 pounds to take her on. So I'm excited for that one. And then, obviously, the main event for the women, which is Morgan Turner versus Julia Horger. Morgan Turner, maybe the pound-for-pound best girl wrestler in the country right now. Just incredibly credentialed, two-time U17 world medalist. But she's taking on a Pennsylvania girl who she won Fargo. That was kind of her breakout performance. So that's our main event. I think that one's going to be fireworks.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, really enjoyed like the series between Morgan Turner and Jacqueline Buzakis over the years, and now Morgan Turner is moving up in weight. But Horger just pinned Jacqueline Buzakis at the Ultimate Duels a couple weeks ago. I mean, this girl is for real. And so, yeah, this is not just...
And I watched that match when we did our preview.
Yeah.
I was like editing it in, and it was like 6-6 or like 6-4. Like there was a lot of scoring happening. It wasn't like she was getting killed by Jacqueline and then she pinned her. Like it was a very competitive match.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that one's going to be awesome too, for sure.
And 2 and 5 p.m.
Yes.
on Sunday.
2 p.m. Eastern. Girls matches 5 p.m. the boys.
All right, so be sure to tune that obviously live on Flow Wrestling. Now, let's move on to our next weight. We've been tiering. We're starting to get to the middle weights. 165 pounds today. My tiers. Tier 1, I think our first island, Mitchell Messenbrink. Solo dolo, Mr. Mitchell Messenbrink. I think he separated himself from the field last year. Tier 2, Caliendo, Garvin, Hall, Ramirez, Amin. Tier 3, that's where it gets interesting for me. Sammy Sasso, Tier 3 Island. Just because there was so many question marks.
The document literally says Sammy Sasso, question mark.
That's right. Well, I mean, he could be a Tier 2 or potentially even a Tier 1 guy. We just don't know where he's at right now, obviously coming back off of his serious injury. And then I did include a massive Tier 4 with people like Bowman, Garrett Thompson, Olgin, Mayfield, Bubba Wilson, Andrew Sparks, Bubba Sparks, Troll Bearclaw, and a couple other names. But, yeah, so what do you guys think of my tiers?
I think Tier 2, when you consider Caliendo, you kind of got him with a rough crowd there. I mean, he's a well-behaved young man. He's only losing to David Carr, Keegan O'Toole, Mitchell Messenbrink, and Dean Hamady. Those are the only guys that beat him last year. Meanwhile, you look at the coterie that you've involved him with. I think those guys are a little more, definitely a lot less consistent than Michael's been. Now, where that puts you in a tough position, because do you do a Tier 1 and 2 Island? Because we all know he is not competitive with Mitchell Messenbrink, but we also know compared to the other guys in Tier 2, he's far more consistent and really only loses to the best of the best.
Consistent doesn't get you separation if you are constantly losing to the tier above you. Some of these guys in Tier 2, I think I might give a better shot to beat Mitchell Messenbrink. But I would also give them less of a shot to lose to somebody in Tier 3. He's consistent, but he doesn't have as high of a ceiling potentially as some of these other guys, which I think means you are a Tier 2. You might not lose. You might be less likely to lose to a Tier 3, but you can't separate him from the likes of, of Ramirez and Amin. And maybe even a Hunter Garvin, who obviously had a way, you could say, worse season, but looked great at NCAAs with some more impressive wins.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But I mean, his losses are just insane. He lost twice to Joey Bianchi.
Who did he beat at
Dominic
NCAAs?
Baker, Connor Brady. He beat Peyton, Amin, Cerniglia, and Nick Hamilton. He lost to Olenek and Keegan.
That's a good NCAAs.
Oh.
I know it's one tournament, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Caliendo
there's
hasn't done
definite separation.
Caliendo hasn't beaten any of those like top tier guys yet.
Man, I think he might be. I think this might be a little archipelago situation because like I don't know that I could pick anybody else in the finals opposite. Well, the only question about whether or not Caliendo is going to make the finals in my mind is if he, because he loses to Mesenbrink during the season, ends up seated on the same side of him or something like that. But I don't know. I don't know that he's going to lose to any of these guys.
You couldn't see him lose. I could see him losing to like a Julian Ramirez.
Maybe. Let's see.
When Julian's good, he's really good.
What were Caliendo's losses last year?
O'Toole,
Went
Mesenbrink,
over them at the beginning.
Mesenbrink, Hamady, Mesenbrink, and David Carr. That's it.
I forgot you
Did
said
he face Hall and Ramirez? He beat Amin, if I remember correctly.
And that's for some people.
Caliendo beat Olenek and Ramirez 9-4 over Julian.
Good.
Okay.
I think if you are looking for someone that could jump back into to Michael Caliendo's kind of strata, it would be Cam Amin, potentially. Definitely, he did not have a good year last year. He did not look great. Just not attacking enough. I'm not saying Oklahoma State's going to be some secret, turnaround for him. I think he's wrestled far better at Michigan than he did last year as well. And so if they can get him back to that form, I think he's very competitive with Caliendo. But he's got to get that back, and he was pretty far removed from that last year. So I would say he's a good candidate. This is, we can be honest. To me, this is the weakest weight in NCAA wrestling this year. When you combine that with someone as excellent as Mitchell Mesenbrink, it definitely shifts things a little bit in a weird direction in terms when you're trying to tier it. But I think when you consider that, I think there are maybe some guys that are outside of tier 2. And maybe we should talk about Sammy Sasso. Like, how do we think he competes at 165 pounds? I mean, that's where he is on the roster for Ohio State. I mean, if you're looking for someone that could jump in that tier, why not Sammy Sasso, other than the obvious reasons of he was shot and we haven't seen him wrestle in over a year?
If he can get back to 95% of what he was at 149 pounds, he's going to be... He can push Mitchell Mesenbrink. I just think, not having been in the Ohio State room, not having eyes on Sammy Sasso, just knowing where he was health-wise 6 months ago, I don't think it's possible for him, especially up 2 weights. I could be wrong. I would be happy to be wrong. Sammy's the man. But I think just getting back to a Division I starting lineup is an extreme accomplishment within itself from where he was after he was shot. So I'm not trying to put down Sammy Sasso. I just think I'm more, I guess, underselling and hoping he over-delivers for me rather than getting my expectations up for Sasso.
It's fair. I'm excited to watch as far as tier 3 goes, or 4 rather. Bowman, Olguin, Cam Steed for Missouri. He was someone I was kind of hyping up last year, and then he didn't start, right? Because they had, I think he couldn't make 57, or he couldn't start at 57, and then Keegan was at 65, and Keegan was holding 65 because they had Peyton Mako. So now Keegan moves up. Steed should be able to slide in. I think he's going to do a really nice job for Missouri. He beat Hunter Garvin last year, and I think he has another pretty good win as well. So be on the lookout for Cam Steed. I know Missouri's really high on him and think he can do a good job. It's a shame he was on the bench last year because I think he's definitely was a Division I caliber starter that year.
Yes, Steed and Bowman, obviously, as 2 young guys with not a whole lot of data out on them yet, are 2 guys who could for sure potentially hop into that, what I have as tier 2 right now, and compete with the likes of Garvin and Amin and Ramirez, I think.
Bowman's going to do something.
Oh, another guy.
Freaky this year to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna do something.
Super freak.
He's kind of a Space Mountaineer though. Like
No,
Not yet. We don't know. I mean,
he's a true freshman.
he was pretty consistent at top level high school stuff, and but we know
The former Who's Number One winner.
he got a pin. I mean, it was crazy.
Beat Tyler Kasak
Against
right?
Tyler Kasak.
And Tyler Kasich,
It's a notable name.
legit. And so I don't know. I'm curious how he's gonna look. I think everyone hopes he's a Space Mountain because it was so fun. The Ant-Man ride was one of the better rides that we've been on over the last few.
I would like to say on record, I hope he's not Space Mountain.
Yeah, I mean,
His season last year was Space Mountain. Lost 8-2 to Max Mayfield. Lost 8-2 to Dalton Harkins. Pinned by Hamady. Lost 12-10 crazy one to Hepner. 9-4 to Caliendo loss. Like he's got to step it up another notch to place. I think we all believe the talent's there, but he's gonna have to find more consistency.
That's fair. I think I like the trajectory I saw from him in his freestyle season though too. He took a loss to Joe Seeley at the Open, I think, and then beat him at World Team Trials. Made the finals against Ladarian Lockett. I think he took a match from him.
mm-hmm.
That's freestyle, obviously.
Okay.
I like the trajectory, is what I'm saying.
Here's a question for you. If obviously it's not the best for Oklahoma State, but if you're Dean Hamady, are you like, man, I was up like 9-2 or something on Mitchell Messenbrink. People forget because Mitchell ended up pulling it out in the third period and winning, but Hamady had this dude on the ropes at Big Tens and just fell off a cliff a little bit in the third period and got taken down and gave up back points to ultimately lose like 13-11 or something like that. Now I think he'll be good at 174, and now with Levi, it might have a final boss similar to the level of Mitchell Messenbrink plus a couple other really deep guys.
And
Keegan, yeah, obviously. So are you like, hey, this is my best shot. I should have beaten this dude. Didn't have my best showing at NCAAs, but if I wrestle like I did for a period and a half in Maryland at Big Tens, I can beat Mitchell Messenbrink and win this weight class.
That is a great thought. I think, man, if you're Dean Hamady and you look at this weight class, I don't know how you don't consider it. Right now but here's the thing. A guy that you kind of inexplicably had a really hard time with over the years, Cam Amin, is now your teammate and is likely going to be the 65-pounder. So that's probably the lineup synergy, and the fact that Cam Amin exists is probably the main reason it's a no. But if you told me that Dean was going down to 65, I'd be like, man, it goes from a next topic to you can't ignore what happened at Big Tens, and yeah, Dean did not have a good NCAAs, and there was listen. This guy was so checked out at Wisconsin. He didn't go back to Wisconsin when he graduated, or when the season ended in March. He apparently went to Oklahoma State as soon as NCAAs was done. Like he was done there. So you can't tell me that was just in his mind when that had been in his mind for a while. So what version of Dean were we getting versus what we're going to get now that he's at a different place? I think that's what I'm curious about, because for me, when I watch Dean wrestle, it's like, man, this guy is unbelievable athlete, a great offensive mindset. I think we saw him go a little backwards last year, which sort of shocked me, but he also had a fine year. So I think Dean would be so interesting at 65. Now, the weight cut may have been an obstacle for him that he just doesn't want to tangle with. He is big, but I agree with you, JD. If he was down at 65, if you're just asking what's his best opportunity to win a national title, it is at 165, not 174.
At this point, would you be shocked to hear that Coach David Taylor made the decision to redshirt him and use him at 165 next year?
I would not be shocked, but I think what we're going to see, I think David he's having guys bump up, right? Like Tagan Jameson is going up apparently. I'm going to get it right. Hughes reportedly is going up. I think not that they're not going to cut weight at Oklahoma State or anywhere, but I think if Dean views that as a big obstacle, I think David's probably going to line up. Now, if he redshirted, that's the interesting thing with Oklahoma State. If we can just kind of go off a separate tangent here. Like Oklahoma State has all these red shirts available, and are they going to use any of them is a question. It sounds like right now only Caleb Fish would use it when you've got guys like Wyatt could. You've got Dean, and there's a couple other guys that could still all redshirt. Plot, of course, could redshirt. But it sounds like they're going to go for it this year. And so with that in mind, I feel like he is going to go at 74. And I don't think it's a thought in David Taylor or Dean Hamody's mind that they can't win 174. I think on the outside looking in, it doesn't seem as likely. But probably internally, they don't view like they have to cut down to have a chance to win a national title. But I think for us on the outside, that does seem to be the case.
Would you put Hamody in Tier 1 with Messenbrink if he was at this weight, or is it still Tier 1 Island?
Ooh.
Man, I kind of would.
Really?
Just based on how only because he's the only guy not named David Carr we saw give Mitchell a really competitive look. But there is one other guy that should be in here. I'll get to that in a second. But I think I would put him there. Would you guys?
I don't think so.
It's tough because it's again
Because he DMP'd?
Not only that, because I just don't have with Mitchell. If he's on the opposite side of Dean, like you just write him into the finals. With Dean, you don't do that. So I feel like you to be Tier 1, you have to like be the odds-on favorite. Like most people have to be just expecting you to make the finals at this weight. That's not true for all the Tier 1s for all the weights, but at this weight, that's how I feel.
he seems like the king of Tier 2.
Yeah.
Like the most likely to take out Messenbrink, but obviously we saw him lose multiple times to guys in this Tier 2 category.
The good thing for him would be if he was 165, it would mean Cameron Amin is not.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is the guy that always beats him.
Yeah, Cam Amin and Mitchell Messenbrink are the only two people who have beaten Hamody that are still in college. He never wrestled Keegan. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe king of Tier 2 is the right way to say it. But, man, how that match went last time, I think he's pretty much right there.
Didn't Hamody and O'Toole wrestle at the All-Star?
Yeah, you're right.
Years ago?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And Keegan beat him?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It wasn't dominant. I mean, it was all Keegan, but it wasn't a walkover.
No.
I mean, with looking at Dean's match, I think, he lost to Carr at NCAAs and Isaac Olenek, who had beaten him earlier in the year. Other than that, he had 4 losses last year. Messenbrink, Carr, and Olenek. Like his level of consistency is, I think, it puts him up there. But a guy you need that we're not talking about that I'm not sure where. If you're not tiering him or if you're tiering him at a different weight, but it's Nico Ruiz from Arizona State. He gave Mitchell a very tough match, Mitchell's first match of the year. And then I think Arizona State's super high on him now. Is he going 65? Maybe he goes 74. I'm not sure where they're figuring he's going to go, but I think he's going to have a really solid year for Arizona State. Really tough. He's good from everywhere, wrestles hard. And we saw what he could do. And it was Mitchell's first match, right? But at the same time, there weren't many guys that were pushing Mitchell Messenbrink like that at any point in the season.
I remember that.
I think it
had like
bears mentioning. I mean, he cradled him.
Yeah, was that Mitchell's very first match?
Yes.
I remember us all being like, "Oh," putting question marks next to Mitchell's name after that. Like, "Oh, maybe will he be the guy we thought he was?" And he was, but that match made us think, "Whoa."
Yeah, but we just needed to learn more about Nico Ruiz. There's some other guys I thought should have been in tier consideration last show at 57. Like we didn't have Joey Blaze or Vinny Zerban in there. I think those guys, this is at 157, kind of shifting gears, but those are guys that, I mean, I would put them ahead of the Patties, the Lovetts, Teague Travises. I mean, they have really, really good wins in their career.
Yeah, for sure.
Just a note I wanted to make.
Said.
All right. So that was
It has been said.
165. Any last closing remarks or notes? Or I think we touched on just about everything. Hand Mitchell Messenbrink the
We
title
did.
now.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Clip this moment. Messenbrink
Clip it.
haters. We'll see.
Yeah. No. Luckily for us, with Mitchell being maybe the heaviest favorite in college wrestling this year, he is arguably also the most fun to watch no matter who he is wrestling. So it's not this guy's never going to lose to anybody, but he's going to win a bunch of 3-1, 3-2 matches. So it's still going to be a super fun weight.
Yeah, him and Parker both kind of remind me of each other for obvious reasons because they're both from the same club, but they both win all their matches, but it's like fun to watch them win. They do it in such like a high pace, high energy way that you can't take your eyes off it.
Yep. All right, we are going to start previewing one team per show up until the season starts in just a couple of weeks. And we are going to start today with the number 4 ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers. CP, give us a little rundown of this team and what you like about them.
I like a lot. I especially like the first 5. It's a savage way to start a dual meet. You're going to go Caleb Smith, Jacob Van D, Brock Hardy, Ridge Lovett, and Trail Taylor to get it going. This is a team that over the years has a ton of excitement and energy, always really solid. Mark Manning, Brian Snyder, and company do a great job there. It's putting it together, full team at NCAAs that's kind of eluded them in a trophy. And I think they need major contribution from this first 5 if they want to get in that conversation. And they're in the conversation, but I think it's going to take a perfect tournament, and that's something that Nebraska was able to put together. Bob Smith, if you watch this guy wrestle, and when Caleb Smith's on, you'll be like, this guy can beat anyone in the country. And I really believe that. But then you watch him in other matches, you're like, this guy can lose to a lot of guys at the tournament, right? There's a lot of guys that are that he could fall to, right? He had a lot of, I would say, inconsistency last year. I think for Nebraska last year, one of the top substances was
Hold on.
under Jacob
CP,
B.
can you repeat
coming
that? You
there,
cut out a little bit.
We weren't talking about it all. Dang. No, just kidding. Did you hear me talk about Jacob Van D?
No.
Okay.
So
Did you hear me
start
talk
with
about
him.
Caleb Smith?
Yeah, we did hear you talk about Caleb Smith. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Jacob Van D, I think, was one of the number 1 surprises for Nebraska last year. We did not have him on the radar as somebody be in the top 12 as last year. And then he beat Dylan Ragusin. He beat Nick Bouzakis. Definitely took some wild losses that you can't, certainly not someone you can pencil in for All-American, but the development he showed from true freshman to his redshirt freshman year last year.
I think
All right, well,
we lose them all together.
Well, we'll try and reconnect with CP.
And
Oh. Okay.
I think we lost him.
Yeah. We'll get him back though, but no, Nebraska's going to be really good this year. Preseason number 4.
let me
Ever tell CP to log off and log back on. That's always my method. Turn it off, turn it back on.
Yeah, the old turn it off, turn it back on. So preseason number 4, you say, and I mean, I don't, we didn't get to hear everything CP was saying about these guys, but I do think when you look at the rankings and you're trying to see like, can a team move up? It's like you're like, all right, well, where can they get more points than they're currently being allotted? And when you look at Ridge Lovett, number 5,
Yep.
This guy could win it. It could happen. Jacob Van D, number 11, he could sneak on the podium. That's a big opportunity there. So I mean, even at 184, Lenny Pinto at 8, wouldn't be surprised if he's a little bit higher. They have room to grow.
Art Harley Andrews at 23. He could. Now, I don't think he's going to be picking up a whole lot of NCAA points.
Yeah.
So, but he could climb up in the rankings. This isn't just a good tournament team like we've been talking about with some of these guys. Very good dual team as well, with only one true, I will say, hole in their lineup where I'm not sure who's really going to start, and that's at 174 pounds. You look at, besides that, everybody is ranked And most of them are ranked in the top 10, if not the top 12. Number 4, number 11, number 4, number 5, number 7, number 12, 174, number 8, number 23 preseason. That's a stacked team.
Yeah.
How do I sound, guys?
Oh, you're
we
back.
can hear it. You're back.
So back.
I'm back. Sorry, that's annoying. Especially sorry to the listeners at home because that's frustrating. I wanted to mention like Brock Hardy was definitely someone last year we thought this guy's gonna take a step up into that title contending realm, and I'm curious if he can enter that category and wrestle with the Mendezes and the Alirezes and Bo Bartlett's. I think he can. It's really tricky. Ridge Lovett was and these are the guys, Brock and Ridge. I feel like they need to place high for Nebraska to enter that, trophy type of conversation. But I feel like this team is a lot of could and couldn't, right? Could place, could not place. Could be a very happy or very sad round of 12 evening. That kind of Friday night session is going to be huge for them. And it's been a tough round for them at times. So that's going to be what's huge for them. And I'm really excited to watch Antrell Taylor. I think what he can do at 157, he was small at 65. You could see it on the mat, and he still more than held his own, beat a lot of good guys, beat Peyton Hall, among others. So I'm excited to watch Antrell, and I think this is an exciting team for sure. And, hey, you got Harley Andrews there, but could we see the polar bear make another return to the college mat after playing football, Nash Hutmacher?
I don't know. I haven't heard much about the polar bear recently. I don't know if that he was one season and done. Bray, maybe check the roster.
I'm looking at it, and let's see. Let's see where we got. No, he's not on the roster. Oh, the football roster though. That's what. All right.
Well, I was talking about wrestling.
He's definitely on the football roster.
Okay.
He's like he had a big game against Colorado.
All right, maybe he. Yeah, why not?
I'm watching.
Yeah, one more polar bear expedition.
Yeah,
I do want to say with Nebraska, I think it's easy to first come to mind. You think of Ridge Lovett, a guy who maybe you were thinking would win a title, then he ends up getting 6th, and think like, oh, they didn't quite put it together NCAA's. But I want to say they were one of only 2 or 3 teams that had 5 All-Americans at NCAA's last year. So they are getting the All-Americans. I think the thing that will really help them get to a trophy is you got to get those like thirds, fourths, the finalists. Those are really what kind of punch you through to that top 4.
By the way, Kozak says polar bear trying to make the NFL, which that's never worked out for anybody. No, but anyway, he says he's not wrestling. He's making a push for the NFL. So that
What's
makes sense.
Kozak his agent or something? What's he know?
Yeah, Kozak is trying to. Yeah, he's trying to get it.
Is he representing Nash Hutmacher?
Double agent.
He is. Yeah, he's kind of a double agent.
He probably is.
I feel
Are there any new faces?
Yeah. Hey, I got a new face. I got an idea. I got an idea for Nebraska at 174. And I'm sure this is not an idea they haven't already thought of, but they have a guy who's listed in WrestleStat at 165, but who just won a world medal at 79 kilos, LJ Araujo from North Dakota, Super 32 champ. I thought he looked plenty big for 79 kilos at U20 Worlds. I mean, you're winning U20 world medals, you're legit, you're ready to roll. So I think that's going to be a guy that you're going to see them use their 5 at 174, and
the waters.
He could. I mean, that guy, he's done nothing but impress. I mean, Super 32, not on a lot of people's radars, and then all of a sudden, boom, he won it. So,
but is he a better option than Christopher Minto, aka Christopher Moltisanti?
For Mintasante?
Famous Sopranos character.
He may be. That's what we're gonna have to find out.
I feel like Mark Manning doesn't get maybe the respect he deserves on the national scene. A lot of consistency talk on this show. Listen to Nebraska's NCAA finishes. 9th, 8th, 5th, 12th, 2020, 10th, 9th, 9th, 8th, 9th, 11th, 13th. Down here in 2012 with 21st, 12th, 12th, 4th, 4th. Going back to 2008. Like a regularly top 10 team, occasionally hitting the 11th or 12th, but very consistent in that 5th through 10th range. And when you think about other sports, your footballs and your basketballs, like if a team was regularly a top 10 team in the country, like he would be considered one of the greatest coaches currently and arguably like a Hall of Fame coach, period, of all time. And now I know it's not a even comparison, wrestling and other sports, but he has shown to be a phenomenal recruiter and a phenomenal coach, I think.
Yeah, I think what hurts Coach Manning and company is just the expectation. I feel like people actually really do get behind this team and get excited about them. And then at NCAs, it feels like top 4 is possible, and then they wind up 8th or whatever. And I feel like last year was a great example. I mean, they were in the middle of the tournament, they were really high, right?
I think they were undefeated
So,
in
yeah,
round 2.
Yeah, they had an amazing, I guess, Thursday night. But so yeah, I think you're right. He does a great job, and that level of consistency is not easy to maintain. He's done it for a long time.
And I have always said I feel like Nebraska is maybe one of the few places you could put together a team that performs really, really well consistency. Like if Cale Sanderson hadn't gone to Penn State, another place he could have had another insane run is a place like Nebraska because of the athletic department budget, the location, and just the way Nebraska gets behind their college sports. I think is kind of unparalleled. Other sports outside of football, I will say. I feel like not a whole lot of other universities have that. I mean, look at what Nebraska volleyball has done. I'm telling you, they sell out Bob Devaney Center for, normal volleyball matches. They packed Memorial Stadium with 92,000 fans for a volleyball match just because it's good. They don't have pro sports there, and so you could really get behind any good sports team.
Cool.
All right. So that was the Nebraska preview. What do we think their floor is, their ceiling? How high could they finish at NCAAs, but what's the lowest they could finish?
Feels like 5th on the high end, and then
You think?
11th.
They're ranked 4th right now and 2 points,
I know.
projected 2 points behind Oklahoma State.
I've seen this movie, JD.
Yeah, but we're talking ceiling, best case scenario. Not what they will, it's best case scenario.
Yeah, okay, 4th.
I think 3rd is best case scenario. Caleb Smith places 4th, Van D makes the podium, Brock Hardy takes top 3, Rich Lovett wins, Antrell Taylor places 4th, Bubba Wilson makes round of 12. I don't know about 174. Pinto makes the podium, Silas Allred makes the podium. Like, obviously, not all of that is going to happen, but that's best case scenario. Like, a very realistic possibility individually for all those guys I just said.
Yeah, I think we just see best case scenario for any team like never happens.
Correct.
Maybe Penn State. It never, ever happens. So then it's like, what percentage of best case scenario normally happens? But yeah, they got a lot of bullets for sure. It's going to be a fun team. They're going to win some big dual meets. They're going to be competitive with everyone. I like this team. It's a good team.
Do they duel Penn State this year? I know they've released their Big Ten schedule. Pull that up for me, Bray. And Iowa. Nebraska, Iowa. That's going to be a fun duel because both those teams very stacked with a lot of, kind of 3 through 8th ranked guys that are going to be tough swing matches.
It was a great duel last year, too.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Michigan.
Right now, Nebraska's wrestling schedule says they wrestle Utah Valley on November 8th, and that's it.
All right.
Okay.
Go to their social media because I know they released the just the Big Ten ones a while ago. Now, I will say I think their floor is quite a bit lower than the 4th ranked they currently are, kind of like you mentioned. I would say I could see them sliding to like outside of the top 10, like an 11 through 13 range if they have a bad NCAA tournament.
I'm scrolling. I'm not seeing it at the moment.
All right.
Not either.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move. I hope they do at least one or two of those teams. I can't remember off the top of my head, but those will definitely be duels I'll be circling to watch. Some other quick news from around the horn. We've announced 4 All-Star NCAA All-Star Classic lineup matches. This is going down Saturday, November 16th, back in Penn State, back in Rec Hall. The matches we've announced so far: Nasir Bailey versus Evan Frost at 133. Shane Van Ness versus Ty Waters at 149. Levi Haynes versus Rocco Welsh at 174. And did we announce one other?
Stephen Little versus Bronigal at
Yep.
197.
So the rest of the matchups are going to continue to kind of roll out here over the next week or two. And we're going to give you, FRL listeners, an exclusive on the next ones we're going to announce. The next 3 matchups, we're announcing 125 pounds. Jory Volk versus Tanner Jordan. 285, Greg Kirkfleet versus Nick Feldman. Woo! And 141, Jesse Mendez versus Bo Bartlett.
Woo!
Yeah, that's good.
That's an NCAA final, son.
Mm-hmm.
That's maybe.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
this Haynes Welsh match, I think that's the coolest one we've announced, just because to me it makes us, it sort of ends a little bit of the speculation. And honestly, you think about Levi Haynes at 174, it seems like a no-brainer now. But also, Rocco Welsh, Ohio State's lineup, a lot of questions, a lot of options. Carson Hartzler is back. Is he a 74? What does that mean for Rocco? Could he go up? Could he redshirt? Now, what's interesting is with these guys could both wrestle this match, and they both could still redshirt. But to me, it's a statement that they both are planning. I don't think you take this match if you don't have intentions of competing for this season. And so to me, this is interesting for Ohio State and Penn State to see both those guys wrestle. It's another opportunity for Levi to cement himself as the guy at 174, maybe even a favorite after what he did in the Keegan match at World Team Trials. I think that's an absolutely huge match. And the Van Ness Waters one, we talked about those two in the 149 tiers, where JD had Shane Van Ness separated from Ty Waters, despite them both having super similar seasons. And Waters may have had a debatably better one last year. So I really like that match, not just from how do they stack up, but two, I feel like their styles are really fun. Ty is maybe the best top wrestler to weight. I think Ridge Lovett would definitely have something to say about that, and maybe would be the guy. But Ty is next level from the top position. Very good scrambler, underrated leg attacks. Van Ness, kind of first opportunity watching him off of a season-ending injury a year ago. We watched him at the All-Star Classic beat Kyle Parko. He looked really good. I think he even looked better than he did the previous season. His pace is insane. High attack rate. Just a really exciting guy. Those of the first group of matches, those are ones I'm really excited for. And then at heavyweight, Kirkfleet Feldman was like getting closer every single time. He kind of got handled in the duel at Rec Hall, and then at Big Tens he got the first takedown, and then it sort of got away from him. And then he almost stole the match late against Kirkfleet at NCAAs. Got in deep on a leg and tried to cut back across the knee, and just Greg, too big, too strong, got away. But man, it's like, all right, what progress has Feldman made in the last 6-8 months, knowing that Kirkfleet's the guy that you're really striving to take down. So a great opening. First 6 or so matches announced, and of course you guys know we're working on a big one there, and hopefully we can announce that one soon.
Yep. So All-Star Classic Saturday, November 16th, Rec Hall. Gonna be great. We'll be announcing the rest of those and doing a bunch of preview content on the website and on social media leading up to that. So stay locked in for the rest of those. Elsewhere in the wrestling news world, hot seat for Michigan. Time to freak out if you're Michigan, because Chris Cannon went there for a year and said, I got to go right back to Chicago. I got to get back to Northwestern.
I don't know. I don't think that's hot seat for Michigan. I think that's it's like, damn, we kind of got robbed. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything about that situation.
This is the first time I can remember somebody transferring back to their original institution. We've seen guys go in the transfer portal, not transfer, but I don't think we've ever seen the
snip snap.
The Michael Scott snip snap situation where guy goes Northwestern to Michigan, back to Northwestern.
Kind of saw it with Brady Berge. Brady,
Oh, yeah.
he never transferred.
Yeah.
He was literally on the South Dakota State staff, and then they're like, "Hey, we need a 57." He's like, "All right, I'll come back." And then
went back where he's.
I don't know if we'll ever see that one again. Yeah, I don't. I think it's happened, but I can't think of it. So
That is still so
right
crazy.
now.
Just imagine you're getting a class schedule from Penn State while you're getting a W-2 from South Dakota State. That is insane.
That's the American dream, folks.
That's the hustle.
You think he's going to be 133 again? He seemed kind of big. I don't know.
I know he didn't have a fun time.
He needs to be.
But I think that's probably his best weight class. He has had concussion issues. That was part of the reason he didn't wrestle at Michigan.
It was the reason.
Yeah, so, cutting weight and concussions never are a good combo. So, I don't know. I haven't talked to him.
For Northwestern, I think they need him at 33. With Frankie Talshahar coming back at 41, he's been really good there. They have Sam Cartella coming off redshirt. He had a solid redshirt year. He definitely took some losses, but he also beat some guys. He beat Dylan Gilcher. He beat Willie McDougald, Caleb Ratchie, just to name a few. So I think that's someone that if you're Northwestern, you want that guy in your lineup. So I feel like for them, they're gonna want Chris at 33. So that'd be my expectation, because unless they want to bump, and even bumping, I think can really be disruptive to what Northwestern. They need to, they kind of sat a lot of guys last year, kind of setting up this season. So I think we're going to see him go. Yeah,
and it's good, a good highlight for Northwestern, who's had a down past couple of years compared to the standard Storniolo and company set, the years prior.
Yeah, when you look at just a real quick, I don't know, 25 may be a little tough, but they go Cannon, Tal Shahar, Sam Cartella, Trevor Chumbley, guy that beat Meyer Shapiro last year, Max Mayfield, pretty tough. And then Ferranti at 74, Troy Fisher, 84. So Evan Bates, 97. So the bookends may be a little rough, but I feel like 33 through 97, a lot of national qualifiers. And with Northwestern, they're a team we always seem to get some surprises. Some guy like, wow, I had no idea this guy would be able to produce at this level. So don't be surprised if we see that Cannon return to the form we'd seen him wrestle at 33. And then there's always some surprises at Northwestern. Coach Storniolo and company do a fantastic job.
All right, it's 11 o'clock. Tyler, you want to hit us with some questions from our friends?
First one we got from Drew Blogs. He said, will we ever see another school have 4 wrestlers on a WNO card? How rare is this? I'll kick it to you, Bray.
Super rare. I mean, I'm trying to think if there could have been. When there are brothers, that seems like it increases the chances. There could have been a chance where like Don Bosco could have had it, like if Pico would have still
St. John Bosco
been around. Yeah, St. John Bosco. If Pico would have been around with the Valencias or something like that, could have gotten close. But it seems pretty rare. I think it could probably still happen again next year with Bishop McCourt. I don't know what year Jordan Faust is, but the other 3 are all going to be back. So, we could see again next year. I don't know. It's pretty rare though. It's unreal. What came to mind for me, I know it didn't happen, but like Aaron Pico, Kate Olivas, and the Valencia brothers felt like it could have been like a 4. And so I think that we could see it again, but yeah, super rare.
Stillwater High School had a few, maybe it was just 2. Cade Brock and JoJo Smith. I thought they might have had
They have 2 this year also.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if Wyoming seminaries had some big numbers in the past before.
Did Mark Hall
Feels
and
like they always
Gable
have two or
ever
three.
compete on the same Who's Number One? I don't. They probably weren't close
No,
enough in age.
they did not.
On another WNO note, the real Avery Lynch wants to know who's behind Jody Stripmatter for most WNO coaching appearances.
Nomad and I were just texting
I was thinking about
this.
that.
Yeah, Nomad and I were texting about it the other day. I think, like Jared Lawrence at Pinnacle's got to be close. And then, but I think actually the real answer is
Cornell.
Cornell Robinson.
I mean, I see him freaking every year there. It feels like.
I think actually,
Even going back to Christian Brothers.
I think maybe ahead of him is Ruben Valencia. He's had he's had a ton. So I think Ruben is second behind Jody.
Dang.
Yeah, great point.
Cornell is a great answer too. He's had a bunch.
Next question is from Donick Montano. He said, if a college team just started its program, let's say USC, they got everyone on the WNO card and they could all compete this year, how would that team do? Basically, if you get all the number 1 ranked kids in the country at those weights and they're a college right now, how would they do at NCAAs?
They would do good.
They would, that'd be pretty good.
Well, no, I think he's saying
Like this year, you enter them at NCAA.
Yes. I think he wants to know how these high school kids would
how the
do
high school
at
kids
in
would
college.
compete at NCAAs
Okay.
this year as juniors and seniors or sophomores in high school, though.
Maybe another way to think about it is like, which kids at Who's Number One do you think are like college level All-American guys like right now? I think Jax Forrest could do it. I think D Lockett could do it.
Bo
Bassett could do it. Anthony Knox. Who else?
That feels like the list. I feel like I don't know these lightweights. I don't think we have any guys. Knox might be able to place
You
at
didn't say
25.
Zepeda.
I think he could. Zepeda.
Us.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Do you think Zepeda? What is it about Zepeda that he had Bo's number last year, and we're still all giving him? We have maybe said he maybe should be the favorite. Us in the know, but even you hear like, no, Bo's maybe a little more college ready. Does he just have his number?
I don't know about. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, he was bigger last year for sure. He was a bigger person. I think this year they're relatively similar in size. So I think that's like the reason that people feel like there's a caveat around that match. And then, I mean, it's just, you look at how they've done against college level opponents at this point. Really, the only time that we've seen that is U20 US Open. And, Zepeda lost to Coy Biskins, and then Bo Bassett beat Coy Biskins, and that's kind of like the main data point is you see him against college level guys, and he just hasn't done it, where Bo has won a college open. He's made a U20 world team. He's medaled at the U20 worlds. Just a lot more evidence of being right there and being college ready. And I think sometimes there's a difference between can you beat one guy versus how would you do in a field. Their styles are a little bit different in that way, but I don't know. I mean, Zepeda looked really good at Elite Eight duels. He won a bunch of good matches there. He might be ready. We just haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Bo gets a nod in terms of college readiness just because when you're that good from the top position already, it just feels like that's just such an X factor, such a weapon to have in your arsenal. I think he is one of the best top wrestlers in America right now, in high school, and that tends to just translate really well to the next level. Like he's going to be able to turn guys. So for me, that's partially why you say he's super college ready.
Cool. So the answer is they would do really well. Next one is from Brian Murphy. He said, you guys should schedule a match at WNO and try your lava out of bounds rule for freestyle. Not really a question, I suppose. Will we ever see a WNO test?
Folk style or
rules?
freestyle?
Freestyle, he said.
Oh.
No, I mean, Who's Number One is a folk style event for the boys because it's kind of a, it's looking at these guys as college prospects.
Well, now it is, but we have done freestyle. Who's not?
And the girls
done
matches
freestyle.
are freestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they wrestle freestyle in college.
But we've done many freestyle matches for who's number one in the past, but I don't see us. Yeah, I don't know. I doubt we would do something experimental like that, especially with college rules being pretty cool right now. I wouldn't be opposed, but it feels unfair if we said I would want to do it for not freestyle but for folk style to have like a straight a step out warning or a step out point. I think that would actually be awesome. But it would be weird to have something that so drastically changes tactics and how you would wrestle. To have that be what determines like a really important ranking feels almost unfair to the kids to have them sort of it's to have the number one ranking on the line and there's this one off step out rule that only exists in this hybridized rule set. That just doesn't feel fair to me. So I don't think we would probably do that.
I have a question for you guys, or Christian. You might have been the only person at Flow at the time, but what was the feeling around? Because we talked about the Nick Suriano Dayton Fix match. We talked about how there was unlimited overtime, and when I was watching that as a spectator, I was like, "This is awesome," but it was never done again. What was there issues technically? Like, how did you guys feel at Flow at the time when that happened, and why did you make the decision not to do that again?
I don't know. I mean, I think the first decision was just basically. I think we actually may have had it in other years and just they didn't go to overtime like afterwards. I think we had pretty unique. I can't recall. Like I feel like in 15 we had something.
I think it might have been like 10-minute overtime or something.
I think so. I think you're right. But I mean, it started just because I think Willie just hated the high school overtime rules, like with tiebreakers, where a guy, the guy who gets the flip gets the win a lot of times. Even though I don't necessarily agree that that's the case, I think you see a lot of rideouts in high school. But anyway, that was kind of what created it, and I think eventually it just shifted back into more normal high school rules. But I do think afterwards we had some unique rules. I wish I could remember what they were. I don't know if it was unlimited, but super extended. And then eventually we just transitioned back to, well, we actually went through a lot of different things. We had a freestyle one, and then we had eventually college rules now.
Was there any like panic in production at all when the Nick Suriano match and Dayton Fix match was going that long?
I mean, there was always panic in those days around something. I remember one. I mean, this just how run and gun this stuff used to be. Like, we didn't have a light operator one time, and my brother just happened to be going, and they just used my brother to like run the light. Like, it was so freaking amateurish then. Now we like hire people for the jobs. But so yeah, there's always panic. I feel like no one was freaking out that this thing was lasting forever, but there was definitely like, we got to towel them off at some point and give them a water break. And so we did that, I think, in the middle of the overtime at one point. So that was definitely not planned for. That was a decision made on the fly, which is not really when you want to make those decisions. So yeah, I guess you would say there's a lot of like emotional decision making then. And I was just nervous the whole time just because I was like, I think I've talked about it a little bit. I was just like, oh my gosh, what if something happens? Like,
you
what if
thought
someone gets hurt
you were worried about their safety?
And at 29.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's y'all's ideal?
It was just, and also like just parents. Parents are crazy, right? And you're just watching parents, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're mad about stuff for whatever reason. Like, I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, I was just stressed.
What's y'all's ideal overtime or lack thereof rule set?
Well, I mean, I do like criteria for freestyle, but I think for folk style, the NCAA overtime like rule set, it feels so much closer to right than the high school rule set. The thing that's tough.
I hate the writing time though.
I don't know. But the thing that I feel like is evidence that it's a lot better is when you cover a lot of high school matches and you're at a lot of high school events, if there's a kid who believes he's got a mat advantage, a lot of times that guy's just going to shut it down on the feet. And like, you look at like some of the best potential matchups that could have had like awesome, neutral action end up 1-1 in overtime. And I think guys just bet on themselves on the mat. And if you feel good about that, like you can just employ that strategy where you don't see that nearly as much in NCAA wrestling. because you know, overtime is more than just that one, you know, 30-second period if it comes to that. So I think the NCAA overtime rules are pretty good. I don't mind the riding time.
Well, I hate it because the guy who has second choice has such an advantage to know how much riding time do I need to get to win or lose this match, and then I can base my choice off of that. So I don't like that. Yeah. That is where strategy comes into play, where you want to score first if you think this is going to be a tight match, even though nobody thinks like that or that far down the line.
I love the new college overtime rules. I like 2 minutes sudden victory is awesome. And so you're likely to get a definitive result because that's what you're looking for, a definitive result. Who's better? If you get the takedown in overtime, that question is answered. And then, you know, I like how they do the tiebreakers. I think it's fair. And oftentimes you see them go to that second sudden victory or whatever afterwards. So I like it. It can drag on a little bit, but it's definitely, you feel like you get the better product than high school for sure.
Would you add an overtime period to freestyle if you could?
No.
Mm-mm.
But you wouldn't add criteria to folk style?
What are you talking about?
If you could, would you add criteria to folk style wrestling?
No, I don't think so.
That's bizarre to me that you are so strong about not adding an overtime period to freestyle, but don't want to add a criteria to folk style.
I think the fundamental difference is that in folk style, you don't get put back on your feet. Like, so the opportunity, if you're on bottom, the opportunity to score is less if you can't get off bottom. Whereas in freestyle, you're resetting a lot. So I think that is why I prefer criteria in that situation. Whereas in folk style, it doesn't make as much sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'd almost have to switch like to more of a freestyle rule set where there's like a definitive like passivity thing that's going to happen. Like that's the other thing is 90 seconds in, like somebody's winning and somebody's losing, for sure. Guaranteed. No doubt about it. Where in folk style, there's no guarantee that anybody's going to score any points, you know, at all in the match. So I think it's harder to go with a criteria rule set there.
I've always said I don't hate overtime a lot, although I am generally speaking pro criteria, but that I think criteria should always be first person who scores. That way it incentivizes action from the get-go, and you never have to think about it ever again. You don't have to think about, wait, how many, if I score here, but I only get a 2. Yeah. Like, that can even be tricky for me, and I'm not, in the match sometimes, even if I'm commentating. If it gets to a high-scoring match, and I got to remember, this guy scored a 4 and 2 1s, but this guy scored 3 2s, it can be tricky. You score the first point, you have criteria. Maybe even make it the first point is 2.5, and so then the score looks different on the scoreboard. But
I'm not shut off to that.
I think that's a better.
I love first score criteria. I think that makes the most sense. I love more than the first score or whatever. I just love that it just shuts down the you just never have to wonder who has criteria again. Yeah. I just think that would be you could hear it in real time when I'm commentating the Andonian Ian Parker match, where I theorized, I'm like, I think 2 2s does it for Andonian, but it was 12-8, and sort of hard to recall all the criteria. And I was right, but like I could have been wrong for sure. And I'd be like, okay, I forgot about this 4, or that he had 2 1s and whatever. And imagine if it's like, oh, Ian Parker has criteria, and then it would have changed the result. It would have changed the tactics. I think I would like that a lot. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, I like it too. Next question is from Tanner Huffman. He said, "What was the most lopsided WNO match in history?" We were talking about The Office earlier. Me and Kozak said the first one to come to mind was Mark Hall, Anthony Valencia, just because it was such a shock that he dominated him the way he did when they had wrestled a few weeks prior. But I think there was a
Knox Castillo.
Yeah, Knox had a tech over Castillo, and he was quite a bit bigger in that one. But yeah, that one was pretty.
There are some freestyle techs when you look at like 2019. I think there were more freestyle matches.
Keegan teched Patty Gallagher.
Mm-hmm. It's obviously Pat Downey over Gordon Ryan.
Wait, wasn't it Nicky Rod?
That was
Nick Rod.
Yeah.
You're right.
Echemendia had like a like a crazy tech too, right? Real fast.
For Josh Saunders.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
This is just a yes or no question. Sometime can we get best of the decade brackets again?
No, I'm just kidding. Yes, maybe.
I don't know.
I'll leave it to you.
If the world ever shuts down into a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic again, maybe.
We gotta keep that chambered. But we need another decade to complete.
Yeah, we're only 4 years past the last time.
Brand new decade.
Ask us in 6 years, Slink.
These two questions kind of go together, and these are the last ones we have. You get what you earn wants to know if we're positive that Stanich is going up, and Slink wants to know the odds that we see Stanich Bartlett in the Lehigh PSU duel.
So pretty positive that Stanich is not making 125 again this season per the coaching staff. I don't know if he will be competing at 141 for the Lehigh duel or for the Penn State duel or not. It sounds like what is most likely to happen is he will redshirt and think about 33 the year after, wrestling off Crookham or figuring it out then. But yeah, maybe we could see him at 141.
It's one of those things where you got
I don't know.
You got him on the poster, you know? It's tough. It's like you got all three of your All-Americans on the poster. But it would be sad for Mountain Hawk fans for him to be on the sideline, but that might be what happens.
He loves McDonald's too much.
That would be so crazy
And
to see him
Domino's.
at 41 against Bartlett. Yeah,
Wait, does he have a Domino's tattoo as well?
no, he just said
That's his favorite pizza.
Oh, okay.
self-described foodie too. I
Can't
love
say
it.
for sure that he doesn't have a Domino's tattoo.
Yeah, no one knows for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are all our questions. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I just want to say, reminder again, no show Monday, Tuesday next week.
Yeah. That's all I got. Excited for who's number one. Be on the lookout for our content hitting the site on Saturday when we're with all the athletes. So that'll be, and I'm sure there's more stuff going up in the next coming days. But yeah, look forward to being on the call with David and Spay during who's number one on Sunday. Thanks for watching this, and thanks for tuning in. You'll hear us again next Tuesday, as JD mentioned. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you guys have a great weekend. Great Saturday, great Sunday. It's always great to be back on the East Coast. We're going to be back Sunday. See it, who's number one. 2 Eastern, 5 Eastern. For JD, for Tyler, for Bray, I'm Christian. See you next time.